Never attempt to win by force what can be won by deception. Niccolo Machiavelli. Are you always tempted to speak while others forge strategies against you? Or are you chatting all the time while you let your next move known to your enemy? Maybe you are too easily distracted while you let others know how you feel about something, unconsciously giving away the valuable hidden feelings that could have allowed you to win the time for making the right move. This video is going to let you understand why silence is your weapon towards success and growth. As you build yourself from the ashes and your enemy only sees you when you have already taken over the biggest of castles, leading towards a life you always dreamt of. Silence is not emptiness, it is not weakness, it is not the absence of thought or courage. Rather, silence is strategy. It is the armor of the wise, the cloak of the powerful, and the chosen weapon of those who seek not only to survive in this world, but to bend it quietly toward their purpose. Machiavelli understood that power does not shout. Power whispers, and those who whisper often command more than those who scream. To young men listening, you have been told to speak up, to express yourself, to never hide your truth. But the world is not merely a place of expression. It is a game of control. And in this game, silence is often the first step to mastery. When you are silent, you gather intelligence. You observe what others expose. You do not become the storm. You watch it pass and use its chaos to your advantage. Lao Tzu, the ancient Chinese mystic and philosopher, once said, "He who knows does not speak. He who speaks does not know." His wisdom was not passive but penetrating. In a world driven by noise, distraction, and endless self-promotion, the one who restrains his voice commands attention, not through volume, but through presence. The silent man is mysterious, and mystery is magnetism. Young men, when you walk into a room and say nothing, you allow others to reveal themselves. You will see how quickly the foolish try to prove their worth with words. You will witness the insecure broadcasting their fears wrapped as opinions, and you, by your silence, will remain unreadable, unread, and unthreatened, but never unseen. Friedrich Nietzsche, the storm of modern philosophy, wrote, "Talking much about oneself can also be a means to conceal oneself." In the age of endless sharing, what Nietzsche suggests is clear. People speak not always to express truth, but often to cover it. They distract you from their flaws with stories. They blind you with curated versions of themselves. Silence, on the other hand, hides nothing but reveals everything, especially power. Silence makes people uncomfortable. They will fill the void with assumptions, projections, and fears. And you will learn far more from their guesses than they will ever learn from your truths. Even Wittgenstein, the brilliant and quiet voice of analytic philosophy, concluded his masterpiece Tractatus Logico-Philosophicus with this haunting line: "Whereof one cannot speak, thereof one must be silent." What cannot be put into words, the most sacred truths, the deepest strategies, the unshakable intentions, are best left untouched by language. This is not cowardice. This is strength in its highest form. Silence is not the same as inaction. To the contrary, silence is preparation. When you say nothing, you do not remain still. You are watching, calculating, weighing options. In your relationships, your career, your goals. When you speak too early, you give away your plan. When you speak too much, you dilute your power. And when you speak without thought, you betray yourself. Sun Tzu in The Art of War wrote, "Let your plans be dark and impenetrable as night, and when you move, fall like a thunderbolt." A young man who lives by this will not move with noise. He will wait patiently behind a veil of silence. And when the moment comes, he will strike with precision, and none will have seen it coming. There is a scene in everyday life that repeats in every culture. The young man in the room, quick to speak, eager to prove, always busy saying, arguing, explaining. Then there is the other one, the quiet one in the corner. His silence is not a lack of social skill. It is the presence of strategy. He is not afraid to speak. He is choosing not to. And in that choice, he is winning. Imagine for a moment a negotiation. Two people sit across from one another. The first talks quickly, laying out their intentions, showing their hand. The second says little. He listens. He waits. His silence becomes pressure. The other starts to second guess, starts to fill the quiet, makes mistakes. That is the silent man's advantage. That is victory without a sword. To all young men listening, when you feel the urge to correct someone who disrespects you with words, pause. When you want to share your plans, your dreams, your love for someone, pause. Ask yourself, will my silence build power or destroy it? Will my words reveal my strength or scatter it? In love, in business, in rivalry, your silence is your shield, and when needed, it becomes your sword. Machiavelli in The Prince warned rulers never to show their true hand. Because people are not loyal to honesty, they are loyal to power. And power is best maintained not through noise, but through control of what is said, when it is said, and most importantly, what is never said at all. This is the way. Be silent, and you will win. A lion does not roar in every moment. He waits, observes, and when he does, it shakes the earth. So too must a man learn that the quieter he becomes, the more he can hear, and the more he hears, the more he can conquer. There's a certain power in holding your tongue when everyone else is losing theirs. In the words of Epictetus, the Stoic slave who became a master of inner dominion, we have 2 ears and 1 mouth so that we can listen twice as much as we speak. He wasn't just offering polite advice, he was pointing to a hidden weapon of the wise. A man who listens sees through the fog of emotion and hears the intentions behind the words. And the man who listens more than he speaks learns faster, strikes smarter, and rises further. To the young man with fire in his chest, know this: silence is not the end of action. It is the beginning of command. When you stay quiet during conflict, you choose your battleground. When you hold back during mockery, you control your image. When you speak last, you often speak best. Consider Marcus Aurelius, Roman emperor, Stoic philosopher, a man who wielded immense power but whose words were always measured. In his meditations he wrote, "You always own the option of having no opinion. There is never a need to get worked up or to trouble your soul about things you can't control." How many of your days have been wasted on arguments that brought no victory? How often have you given away peace in exchange for noise? In the workplace, the silent man is often mistaken for the weak, until the moment comes for leadership. Then those who had spoken loudly and often are seen as erratic, unreliable. And the quiet one, the observer, the listener, the one who knows when to speak and when to stay silent, he is the one they turn to when things begin to fall apart. Because in the silence he had already built his understanding. He had already made his plans.
Hannah Arendt, one of the great voices of political philosophy, saw how dangerous speech could be when it was thoughtless. In totalitarian regimes, language becomes a tool of manipulation. But silence, true silence of the mind and tongue, becomes resistance. Not every truth must be shouted to be real. Sometimes truth is kept sacred by keeping it silent. Young men, when you're tempted to post your achievements, stop. The world does not need to see your process. Let them see only the result. A man who moves in silence confuses the enemy. No one knows your next step, so no one can stop it. Let your actions speak. Let your silence build tension. Let your presence fill the space where others scatter words. Silence is not only a tactic for war, it is a balm for your soul. Søren Kierkegaard, the brooding Danish philosopher of inner angst, said, "The present state of the world and the whole of life is diseased. If I were a doctor and asked for my advice, I should reply, create silence." In a time when the world is louder than ever, constant opinions, endless alerts, and the exhausting race to be heard, your refusal to participate is an act of rebellion. It is the reclaiming of your mind. You cannot master yourself if you cannot master your voice. And mastering your voice begins by mastering your silence. Even the modern philosopher Gilles Deleuze noted that power does not always announce itself. Power is not something you acquire, but something you are caught in. The loudest people often believe they are winning because they are heard. But the silent ones are not caught in power. They bend it. They move behind curtains within shadows. They do not need approval, applause, or attention. Their victories are invisible until they are undeniable. Think of every great strategist, every world leader, every figure of control and mastery. They understood this. Words are expensive. They devalue when used carelessly. But when used after long silence, a single word can shift an entire room. A well-timed phrase can end a conflict. A soft voice can command armies. Because when a man is known for his silence, his words carry weight. So what does this look like in your life? You're in a room with friends. Gossip begins. Do not contribute. Observe. Your silence speaks louder than the laughter. They'll remember it. You're in an argument with someone you care about. Emotions flare. Instead of shouting back, you go quiet. You breathe. You listen. You speak only when clarity returns, and your words pierce deeper than a raised voice ever could. You're tempted to talk about your future goals. But you remember, the more people who know your direction, the easier it is to block your path. So you smile, say little, and keep building in silence. And then one day you arrive where no one expected, and no one was prepared to stop you. The greatest victories are not declared in the moment. They are revealed in hindsight. The world looks back and says, "How did he get there?" And the answer was always the same. He kept quiet. He moved in silence. And he won. There is a haunting wisdom in the silence before the storm. Niccolo Machiavelli himself, the man so often misjudged as purely cunning, once wrote in The Prince, "It is better to be feared than loved, if you cannot be both." But what he did not always say directly was this: fear often begins in silence. A man who speaks little, who reveals nothing, who observes without revealing the movements of his mind, he unsettles others. He is unreadable. And what you cannot read, you cannot predict. What you cannot predict, you begin to fear. Young men, listen carefully. The world today sells you noise as power. It tells you to express every thought, to post every emotion, to comment, to react, to shout your truth into the void. But the ancients and the wise in every age knew better. The true warrior does not broadcast his position. The real leader does not interrupt the room to prove he belongs there. He allows the room to discover him. Friedrich Nietzsche, a man of flame and ice, understood the silent forge of transformation. He who cannot command himself must obey, he said. Self-command begins in silence. Not forced silence, but chosen silence. A silence that builds pressure, a silence that hardens discipline, a silence that becomes unbearable to the weak, but unbreakable to the strong. In your daily life, when you walk into a new environment, be it a gym, a class, a job, do not speak first. Observe, measure, let others reveal themselves. You gain intelligence every second you remain still. While they perform, you prepare. While they expose, you encode. Silence gives you leverage. Imagine two men negotiating. One speaks constantly, trying to dominate with volume, passion, speed. The other remains calm, patient, says little. Who holds power? The one who waits, the one who listens, the one who speaks last. Because when you speak last, your words are final. They carry judgment, and people remember the final word, not the first. Martin Heidegger, the enigmatic philosopher of being, wrote, "We do not speak because we have something to say. We speak because we have to say something, and that is the trap. Speaking to relieve tension instead of to convey truth. You are not here to be a noise among noise. You are here to master your presence until your silence itself becomes a presence that speaks even when your lips do not." To the young man constantly tempted to defend himself, don't. The need to explain yourself is often a weakness. Strength is silent. When someone misunderstands you and you know the truth, let them misunderstand. When someone doubts you and you know your path, let them doubt. Time is the best witness. Let results answer for you. Even in relationships, this truth echoes. Not every emotional wave deserves a reply. Not every insult needs a comeback. Sometimes the most powerful thing a man can do is look calmly into the fire and say nothing, because in that moment, he chooses not to be controlled. He chooses mastery over reaction. Postmodern philosopher Michel Foucault, who spent his life exploring power structures, once suggested that silence itself can be a form of discourse, not absence, but influence. In the gaps of speech, meanings form. Others begin to fill the void with their own fears, their own assumptions, their own interpretations. And in that confusion, you move, you strike, you win. To win, first retreat. Withdraw from the noise. Retreat from the crowd. Pull back from the constant display. Do not be the man who needs validation every day. Be the man who validates himself in solitude. Be the man who can sit alone with his thoughts without panic, without distraction. Because in that quiet, your thoughts become sharp. Your mind becomes a weapon. You want to be respected? Be silent in rooms where others show off. You want to be trusted? Speak only when your words add weight. You want to be desired? Be the one who does not chase, who does not explain, who does not beg. Your restraint will become magnetic. Your calm will become sacred. Remember what Lao Tzu, the ancient Taoist sage, once said, "He who knows does not speak. He who speaks does not know." This was not contempt for language, but reverence for truth. Truth is rare. Truth is heavy. Truth is not to be scattered like confetti. It is to be carried like stone, quietly, patiently, until the time comes to build something that lasts. In every age, the man who wins is the man who prepares in secret. When others perform, he practices. When others declare, he designs. And when the world least expects it, he emerges. Not with noise, but with results. Unignorable, unstoppable, unexplained. They will ask, where did he come from? And the answer will be found in the long, invisible years of silence. There is a force that grows in stillness, a quiet power that does not flicker or fade. It waits, it watches, it becomes inevitable. To the young man walking through fire, misunderstood by his peers, unseen by the world, your silence is not weakness. It is your armor. It is the forge of your future self. Do not break it prematurely. Do not spill your dreams into mouths that will only chew them for sport. Guard them like treasure. Let your ambition move beneath the surface like a glacier, slow, massive, and unstoppable. The Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius said, "The more we value things outside our control, the less control we have." Silence is the gateway to reclaiming that control. When you are silent, you withdraw from the storm of external validation. You return to your center, and in that center, you are sovereign. Think of the lion. It does not roar to announce its hunger. It hunts in silence. It stalks in silence. Only after the strike does the world hear its voice. That is the model for young men. Act, then speak. And sometimes not even then. Let your victories echo without commentary. Do not confuse silence with passivity. It is not submission. It is strategy. Even Sun Tzu, in The Art of War, counseled, "Let your plans be dark and impenetrable as night, and when you move, fall like a thunderbolt." That is not the language of passivity. That is the language of a man who prepares in silence so he can dominate in action. Your silence gives you discipline. It gives you patience. It teaches you to detach from praise and insult alike. Because when the world can no longer provoke a reaction from you, you become untouchable. Do not narrate your struggle while you're in it. Do not leak your dreams before they are strong enough to walk alone. Do not waste your fire explaining it to those who only know how to throw water. Instead, carry the fire. Let it grow. Let it consume. And when the time is right, when your silence has ripened into strength, speak only once, and it will be enough.